Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us with Veterans Wealth Network. We got a really great guest for you today. We're always trying to bring a guest that adds value to the veterans or active duty or recently separated, maybe soon to be separated veteran out there, but also for, families of veterans. Today, we've got a really special guest. His name is Stefan Carradine. And I met Stefan at an event. We kind of said hi to each other. He looked at my lapel pin, saw I was a Marine, and he said, I knew there was something special about you. Semper Fi, brother. And before you knew it, we were besties. So I said, listen, I got to introduce you to my other bestie, Nick Roop. And we do this Veterans Wealth Network, which is designed to try and help you guys, achieve some of your dreams and goals by introducing you to people that have made a difference in their life and how that tracks back to their service in the military. So I know Nick has a lot he wants to say, but we'll wait till we bring on Stefan. So with that said, please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell, and let's get started.
Stefan, absolute pleasure. Appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, I know there's a lot of questions we have on our side. And so just for the sake of time for everyone, can you just dive right in and share a little bit more about your background, your branch of service, and ultimately what led you to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it. I joined the Marine Corps 6 months after high school, graduated in June, and by January 19th, I was standing on the yellow footprint, and my career sort of took off from there. In my military career, I was really fortunate. I had great duty stations. I was in Iwakuni, Japan for the first year. Then I was stationed in Marine Barracks 8th and I for the next 2 years, and it was there where I re-enlisted for another 3 years and ended up finishing my career in Southern California at Marine Corps Air Station El Toro, and decided to stay here in Southern California. I'm originally from the Bay Area, but I figure in SoCal was close enough to home, but far enough away.
Fair enough. And what did you do while you were in the Marine Corps?
My MOS was 0151 administration, but if you're familiar with that MOS, it can carry you across a number of different opportunities. And so the last role I played, I worked for the JAG. I ran the legal department for a small squadron that we had. It was, I think, a lieutenant or captain role, but I was able to handle it. And so enjoyed doing that. And actually, at that time, I think this was 1988, it was right about the time of Oliver North. So any of you history buffs, go back and Google Oliver North. A lot of drama around the legal field at that time. And so I had a desire to get out of the Marine Corps and go to law school and become a lawyer. That was the plan. And as many of you know, you have a goal, you set out to achieve it, and life will take you in a different way. And so I got out of the Marine Corps, got a couple of really good jobs, and then pivoted to the real estate business and got my real estate license and started a career there.
Now, as it relates to real estate, what is it that has your focus today?
I'm a VP of sales or chief growth officer for a small boutique or a large boutique. Probably have about 500 agents here in Southern California, and I'm responsible for the growth of that company. But I'm coming up on 30 years in the business. And I owned a large franchise brokerage for a number of years and spent the majority of my career as the broker owner, training, recruiting, and motivating, right? Recruiting and motivating are all Marine Corps military words, right? Those things carry you across from the military sector to the private sector, but spent a great deal of my time doing that. In fact, that's my primary real estate function today. I do have a book of business, if you will, a handful of clients I've represented over the years, and I help them and their family members with their real estate goals.
Well, Stefan, I can, aside from knowing you, I do know people that I've talked to about you that knew who you were. So, I mean, clearly you've been doing this for a while and you've made an impact, on different organizations that you've worked for. And a lot of people know who you are here in Southern California. I think that for those of you that aren't in our business, probably don't really understand what realtors do. You think that they're just somebody who collects a commission by showing you a house. It's a lot more complex than that. And, depending on what's going on in the economy, it's easy to, I was just telling somebody, it's really easy to be happy when you're making a lot of money. It's when the market is a little tough that really separates the men from the boys. And a guy like Stefan is the guy who's really, they bring in as a pinch hitter to get everybody fired up, and knowing him now, I understand why. Super dynamic, speaker. And I think I would be dumbstruck to meet anybody that isn't friends with you, because I was sitting there having lunch with him and people are coming by to say hi to him. It seemed like I was sitting there with the celebrity of Long Beach there for a few minutes. But Stefan, why don't you tell everybody, maybe I know that you, for lack of a better term, you conquered real estate, but did you ever think when you were serving that was going to be something that you would be good at? Did you think that, being in the public realm and, speaking in public and, kind of, I don't want to say romancing clients, but definitely creating relationships with people that wanted to buy a home. Do you think that was something that you thought was in your cards, or is something you just found out later?
It's a great question, Barry. As I reflect back on it, because of course hindsight's 2020. I was, again, and a lot of it had to do with my duty stations. When I was in DC, I had a connection to the public. Often if you're stationed in a remote area, Okinawa or Camp Pendleton or something like that for Marines, Camp Lejeune even, you're sort of walled off. You don't have as much of a access to the outside world. But when I was here in Southern California and in DC, I had a lot of connections. In fact, when I was in DC, I had a part-time job selling furniture at a furniture store. And I just sort of fell into that. And so, I've always had, I think, an affinity for helping people and interacting with people. Right when I was getting ready to get out of the Marine Corps, I met these two Marines, actually. One was a staff sergeant, one was a sergeant, and they had already gotten their real estate license. And I thought, man, that's kind of interesting, right? And I was naive, like a lot of people are. And I thought, you help people and you do a few open houses, and before you know it, you make a lot of money. So but I was young and naive. And so I got out of the Marine Corps. I was 26 years old. I got a great job at an engineering company as a recruiter. We were recruiting engineers, to go to oil producing countries like Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, etc. And it was a great learning opportunity. While having that job, I met a guy named Tom Carlisle, who was the manager of a Century 21 office here in Southern California. He walked me through getting my real estate license. I got my license and was so fired up to take off. I decided to get out of the Marine Corps. As many of you know, if you're in the military, you get to a point about 6 or 7 years, and that next reenlistment puts you at 10 years. And if you do 10, you might as well do 20, the story goes. And so I decided to get out of the Marine Corps. I got that great job at that engineering company, and I quit after about a year to go into real estate full time. I didn't have any savings or anything, but that didn't matter to me. I figured I'd sell a house in 45 days, it closed in 45 days, and I'd be a millionaire by 30. Well, that didn't happen. I sold some stuff. I sold my sofa, my car, my watch, right? But I didn't sell any houses. And so I got back into the corporate world and had a chance to work for IBM for 2 years. And that's where I really recognized the value of my service in the military, because IBM, especially in those days, was probably more military than the Marine Corps was, right? There was a uniform you had to wear. You wore a white shirt every day. You wore all wingtip shoes. There's a lot of structure. And I was able to have success there almost exclusively because of my experience in the Marine Corps. And so I did that for a while, enjoyed it, learned a lot, but still had this desire to get into the real estate business, and eventually found my way back into the business about 2 or 3 years later.
Nice. So that's kind of one of the things that I've noticed also about, I don't know, but I don't want to say all servicemen, but definitely Marines is, we have no problem speaking out and trying to express the way that we feel. Fortunately, we've got a little bit of politeness because we had to be polite. You can't, you're not going to get anything accomplished walking into an office and kind of throwing your weight around and ordering people around. I guess some people do that, but, I think that what I see in you, at least, Stefan, is that you've got this take charge kind of a personality, but you also have this really incredible ability to make anyone feel like they're one of your friends. So I think that probably helped you with real estate. So why don't you tell us now, from what I understand, I mean, real estate is still a huge part in your life, but you also have another, actually, I think a company or two that you've created that you're trying to really take a swing at and, explore the next chapter of your life.
Yeah, you're so true, Barry. One thing that comes to mind about speaking is that I remember going to NCO school, and part of the curriculum was TMI, right? And not TMI as it's come to be known today, but TMI is in techniques and military instruction. And it was where I started to really hone my skills as a public speaker was at that time when I was in NCO school. And in fact, I did a talk yesterday to our sales group, and we were talking about AI. Of course, that's the big subject now, and what's going to happen, et cetera. And the point I was driving home to the sales group was that as long as you have the skill to get in between two other humans and help them navigate something, you're going to have value. And so the point was, don't concern yourself about the fears of losing your job. Barry, this, been in the industry for a while. When the internet came along, it was supposed to displace real estate agents and do away with certain positions in the financial world, and that never happened. So as long as you have the ability to articulate a point and help people, I think you can do well. I'd like to say that there's a lot of talented people in the world, but there aren't a lot of talented leaders in the world. And one of the things that my military experience taught me is how to lead people. So for those of you that are active duty now or veterans out there, lean into that. Lean into your soft skills as a leader, and corporate America will recognize that. I just recently decided to dive into another business, albeit not too dissimilar, and that's the world of staffing. We are moving more and more to a contingent workforce. More people will have several jobs. The days of going to work for corporate America and staying there 30 years or retiring with a gold watch and a pension, that doesn't exist. In fact, I would venture to say a lot of people don't even know what a pension is. What do you think, Barry? There's some folks that wouldn't know what that is.
Little pension.
And so I'm really excited, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about it. Evercore Staffing is a staffing company that I founded. We just are about to go live this week. And a big piece of what we're going to focus on is helping veterans and their families find that next career move in the private sector. We have a number of industries that we're going to focus on: healthcare, logistics, IT, sales operation, finance, and accounting. And a big part of the community, the candidates, if you will, the employees, we hope to come from the military. I recognize personally, having been there for 7 years, that there's a untapped, I think, skill set that exist across all branches of the military. And it doesn't really matter what your particular MOS is or what your particular job is in the military. The soft skills that you have, the ability to relate to other people, the ability to lead, the ability to take instruction. I can't tell you how often I get frustrated because I'll give someone something to do and they have a hard time understanding because I didn't give them the next 7 or 8 or 9 things to do, right? No, just do follow your last order first, right? I mean, we all kind of learn that. And so I'm excited about the staffing company. I think we're going to do really good things to help veterans in particular identify what their next career opportunity is and really how to make that happen for them. So I'm looking forward to it.
One of the things you mentioned there, I think this is an important point to highlight, right? It doesn't matter what your MOS is. It doesn't matter what you did before. It's the intangibles that you're able to extrapolate from that and then go and apply to something else. And yeah. I couldn't agree more, right? And one of the things that I think it's helpful to have an understanding of as a transitioning service member, you're not alone, right? We've all been there at some point. You really don't know exactly what the next step is when you're going through the TAPS process. It's emotional, right? Like you're leaving behind what you just knew for the last, whether it be 4 years or 7 years or 20 years. That's a lot.
Yes.
And it's challenging, right? And so having the insight, I think, that it gets better. You don't have to have it figured out. Barry didn't know what he was doing when he got out. Stephon, you weren't sure exactly what you're going to go off and do. It wasn't the straight path, nor did I know exactly. I had an idea, but I'm doing something completely different now.
Yes.
The goal in transition, guys, it's not to be 100% right now. It's to be less wrong over time and taking the iterative steps to make sure that you're trending in the right direction. There's some clearly wrong ways to go, but there's not one right way. And Stephon, your story just speaks to that.
Yeah, Nick, I agree with that 100%. I mean, I think one of the things that if we can encourage those members that are about to enter the private sector to understand, and it'll vary depending on how old you are, your responsibilities, if you have a family or not, or if you're retiring, that sort of thing. But I agree. I wouldn't concern myself about trying to figure out what I'm going to do for the next 20 or 30 years, right? Just start the process. And the next opportunity will lead to the next opportunity and so on. And so I had, at the time I was getting out, I think I got out of the Marine Corps in August of 88. And I had no idea, I stumbled into this job as I went to a staffing company and they placed me at this engineering firm. And from that engineering firm, I met this guy who got me into real estate. And then from real estate, I met someone else who got me in the computer business. I got back into real estate. Life is a journey, and just go for the ride. And I was telling you guys this earlier. It wasn't until maybe 10 years or so I was out of the Marine Corps that I reflected back on the skills that I had acquired and how they really have helped me navigate my career. And so I think sometimes we underestimate, right? We make the decision to join the military at 18 or 19, and we're doing it. For me, I was ready to get out of the house, and I went to junior college for like a semester. I tell people it was a semester. It wasn't really a semester. And but my father was had served in the Air Force for a couple of years, and he wanted me to go in the Air Force. And he made that an option for me to join the military. So I started thinking about it. And I had a friend of mine who had joined the Marine Corps a year earlier. And I was, I'll confess, I was a sucker for the dress blues.
It all came down to that for me too, brother. Don't feel I'm doing. What's the best looking uniform? That's all I want to know.
I opened the yellow pages, and again, some people listening to this may not know what the yellow pages are, but I opened the yellow pages and called the Marine Corps recruiter, and that was that, right? In fact, I thought about the recruiter piece because we have a number of opportunities in recruiting, and for former military recruiters, I think those would be great career choices. So those guys are very, very anxious, to say the least.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
I was just going to say, we did really touch on it, but it was an underlying theme that I've heard you talk about, Barry, you talk about as well, but the power of networking, right? It started at pulling out a little thread, and you met one person, and you probably impressed them, and that led to you having deeper conversations, having the availability to have a mentor take you under their wing. Barry, your stories that we've talked through in the past, same exact thing. I've been fortunate enough to have mentors along the way too. But I think there's something to be said. And this is, for me at least, one of the things I wish I would have learned a long time ago is networking and connecting with people with intentionality. Or if I could go back in time, and I'm sure that both of you should probably agree with this in some degree, I would be making it a mission to meet as many people as I could. Stefan, you mentioned that's what you were doing when you were in DC. You're getting out there to new networks that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to have access to, right? If you had just stayed on base, did your thing while you're in the Marine Corps. And Barry, I know the exact same thing to be true for you. And I can tell you, my path was very, very similar. The connection of a connection who, by the way, heard about this and heard about that. It's candidly, that's why we're all here right now, right? It's through networking and connecting with one another in a meaningful way, and not just letting something in with a smile and a handshake at some event, right? It's the follow-up. It's maintaining those relationships. And so I just think that's an important point to highlight that a lot of people miss out on.
Yeah. There's one thing that Stefan, just touched on that kind of a light bulb went off in my head. Nick, you and I have talked about how, when you first get out of the military, the only person that's really impressed is you. Like, you try going and applying for a job. I joined the Marine Corps and went into the Air Wing so I could, go get a job at American Airlines and I wanted to travel the world. And when I got out and I applied and they're like, sorry, you don't have any experience. I'm like, what are you talking about? I just spent 4 years of my life in the Marine Corps working on helicopters. Doesn't that count for something? They're like, no, it's not real world experience. I mean, I was super impressed with myself, but nobody else seemed to be. And that could easily would have set me back to where, I could have reverted and just kind of got sucked into negativity and went away. But the one thing that the military did for me, the Marine Corps did for me, was it taught me, first of all, there is no failure, such thing as failure. Like, I am not going to allow myself to fail. And I don't need to know how to do something to be good at it. I just need the desire to want to do it. And that's one thing that I can directly tie back to the military was that, I just hit everything I did head on and just went, no, I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to be the best at it. And then what winds up happening is that if you do that enough times, you start building a reputation for yourself that you didn't have before. People start going, this guy Barry or this guy Stefan or this guy Nick, they're no joke. Like, look at they were in the military, but look at these other things they've done, and they were successful at all of it. So I don't think the Marine Corps, helped me necessarily directly to be great at being a loan officer, but I can tell you it definitely helped me to be a great human being and to be a great business person, because there was I could go back and tell you all the different things in my life that I've done. I didn't know how to do any of them. But I guarantee you, if you gave me 10 minutes of your time, I could convince you that I was the right guy for the job and you would hire me at the end of it, because I just had that no nonsense. I am going to be the best at whatever it is you show me how to do, just show me how to do it and turn me loose. And that is an attribute I could say, I know you, Nick. That is 100% defines you. And same thing with you, Stefan. So I think that's a super important point to drive through to anybody watching this video right now.
Yeah, I agree, Barry. I've seen circumstances here with a friend of mine who owns a healthcare staffing business, and they tell me about circumstances where a nurse will go into a facility and for a specific role, let's say an ER nurse, and they'll need to move that ER nurse to another department, right? And because of what's happening at that particular time in the hospital. And some people can handle it and some can't. But there's been two circumstances where the nurses were veterans. And you know what? The veterans handle it with no problem, right? We're accustomed to going from duty station, meeting new people, taking on different assignments, right? The opportunity to dive into something without fear of failure, right? We realize and we're trained, whether we recognize we were being trained in it or not, we were being trained to realize that if something happens, you can't stop, right? You have to keep moving forward. And so, and employers are starting, and I know, and I agree with you, Barry, when I got out of the Marine Corps, the opportunities weren't what they are today, I believe, for veterans. And I think because the corporate world has started to recognize soft skills or emotional intelligence as a real high valued asset for their team members to have. You can know how to do whatever your particular skill is, but if you don't have the emotional intelligence, right, or the ability to adapt to changing circumstances, you're less valuable than the person who is able to do that. And so when I look back on it, I am so grateful for that morning when I woke up, opened the yellow pages and called that Marine Corps recruiter, because it made a big difference in my life.
Absolutely. Well, man, I thought this has been a great, I think we're coming up almost a half hour. Is there anything that you'd like to share, Stefan, as we're saying goodbye to everybody that maybe we haven't covered? Is there anything that you want to talk about? Maybe it's about your new company that you're starting, or just in general?
Yeah, I would just encourage everybody to feel good, right? To be optimistic. If you're getting out of the military right now and going to the private sector, the economy is ebbing and flowing, but it always will, right? But be optimistic. And Martin Luther King says we have to live with infinite or finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope, right? Always have hope. Recognize that your skill set, your experiences will carry you through the goals that you have, and pursue big things. You have the skill set to make it happen.
Awesome. Nick, any last thoughts?
Nothing that's going to be as inspirational as that.
That's a good one that's a good one to sign off on, right?
It is. Stephon, I appreciate you taking the time to connect and share your story. I'm positive it's going to have an impact on someone out there that's watching. So appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, guys. It was such a pleasure to spend some time with you, and thank you for inviting me to be part of what you're doing. I think this is it's a valuable contribution to the military community, and I'm sure you're touching lives and making a difference in people's lives all over the country.
That's the goal. Well, guys, thank you so much, everybody. If you're watching this video and you've gotten something out of it, please share this with somebody else that you think could get something out of it, whether it's a veteran, active duty, spouse of a veteran, or just anybody. I mean, we had a graphic designer that was watching our videos, and he just was like, you guys should have 5 million views on these videos. They're so good. I mean, I do believe that the content we're providing isn't just for military people, because there's a lesson to be learned about persistence and overcoming adversity. I think that is a reoccurring theme in our interviews here. So please share this with somebody. Thanks again, you guys. And as always, Nick, love you, brother. Stefan, love you too, brother. And we'll see everybody some other time.